Emily Nathan, occupation classroom assistant, age 39. Blackbirds. Emily Nathan would love to be up with the lark, or with the ouzel or the crossbill for the matter of that. But there aren't many larks or ouzels or crossbills in the northwest of the city, exactly at the point the ring road flares like an aneurysm from 2 lanes to 3. Instead, she's up with, and she realises increasingly for, the blackbirds. Earlier each morning as the days lengthen. Before 5 this morning. Careful not to wake her husband, she wrapped his dressing gown round her shoulders and snuck out of the room. Her quick glance at his hunched form reminded her, if she needed reminding, that he was not at his most attractive when sleeping. Rather than heading for the kitchen and the kettle, she made a detour via the front room where she's put a bamboo chair in the bay window, took up her position. But early though she was, they'd beaten her to it, were already up and doing in the ashy light. Just 5 feet from where she's sitting, in the hedge that divides their house from next door's, is a blackbird's nest. She's been watching it for a fortnight. There are 3 chicks in there now, although there were only 2 until a couple of days ago. Maybe there will soon be 4. Already they feel like hers. Whenever a parent returns to the nest with food, the chicks shriek like they're dying, stretching their necks so far that it makes her eyes water. Their gaping beaks like black holes. Most of the feeding is done by the hen, although the cockbird does contribute the occasional hors d'oeuvre. She is, thinks Emily, an excellent provider. Every 10 minutes or so she returns to the nest with a beak full of berries or emerald caterpillars or worms or some disgusting slimy white stuff that Emily hasn't been able to identify. Of course, she's far too smart to fly there directly. That would be asking for trouble. Instead, she lands 2 gardens away and hops through the hedge as though she's got something else entirely on her mind. Only at the last minute does she make for the hedge, as if on a sudden impulse. She enters it from below, preferring to climb up inside it from branch to branch. On Saturday, Emily sat on the doorstep in the late evening sun. During that time the hen bird passed within a couple of feet of her on its way to and from the nest. 10 times in an hour. Studying these birds, and particularly the hen, is pleasurable in ways that she can't entirely explain. She's not a twitcher. Rarity value is not an issue. She knows that the blackbird is one of our commonest birds, but that's part of the reason she loves it. She's also read articles about how tame blackbirds can be, about authenticated examples of birds coming into gardens when the owner calls. Only so that they can be fed, though, thinks Emily. She has no interest in forming such a relationship herself, dismisses the idea as sentimental. What she admires about the birds is their otherness, their unreachability, their absolute indifference to her and her life, of which they are such a tiny, tangential part. The fact that they are so good at minding their own business, their birdie solipsism. The pleasure of spying on them, sharing their tiny concerns from a distance, is so intense that it has become addictive. She spends more and more of her day watching, has started to resent any enforced absences from her place in the window. She thought about mentioning the nest to Debbie next door, but decided against it, to keep it her secret. It's beginning to feel like these birds have nested in her head rather than her hedge. Yesterday evening, she sat on her bamboo chair until it got dark, watching the chicks getting stocked up for the night. She waved at a couple of neighbours who passed the end of the garden. As the light thickened, it occurred to her that even though blackbirds are the colour of sin, no occult significance attaches to them in the way that it does to crows or ravens. It's as though the world at large has recognised that, as a species, they are incapable of sinister, that they are benign and banal. When she could no longer see anything, she returned reluctantly to the world of humans. Jim came as close as he ever does to complaining about the fact that supper wasn't on the table until after 10. Keeping guard in this way has its anxieties. As she watches the chicks grow, so does her concern about their vulnerability to cats or magpies or foxes, or just about them falling out of the nest. It's as though she has to do their worrying for them. Whereas she can imagine all kinds of terrible things that could happen, they haven't got a clue. Bird brains. In this way, as in so many others, she thinks, they have the advantage of her. Disproportionate though it may seem, she has started to judge the people she knows by their degree of responsiveness to the world around them, to birds and trees and flowers, even to the clouds in the sky. She's surprised to discover that it's a moral issue. It would be hard, she thinks, for her to like someone who is incapable of sharing her secret pleasure. Emily travels to work from the local mainline station. In winter, everyone huddles in the waiting room, but as the days draw longer, they scatter down the platform enjoying the early sunshine. She stands here for only a few minutes a day, but in the past week or so she has seen 3 spotted woodpeckers darting in and out of a horse chestnut tree and 2 crows mobbing a heron. As far as she can tell, none of her fellow commuters has noticed anything worthy of comment.